All right, so now we get into an older section and actually a really amazing section of the cemetery. There's some very unique markers here.
We are in Meriwether County, just outside of Manchester, Georgia. We're on what's known as the Wrightsville Road at Ebenezer Cemetery, said to be the oldest cemetery in Meriwether County, and that is based on the fact that this started out as a family cemetery. This was the family cemetery of the McGouirk family. The McGouirk family came here as surveyors. Seth McGouirk was part of the surveying crew sent in by the state of Georgia to divide this land up into land lots. And this was the first district of what was laid out as Troup County, later became Meriwether County. And the first land lottery divided the land up and distributed the land in this district. So this was the first settlement. The earliest organized settlement in this area is Mountville. Now that was the first community, so we've been told. But the first cemetery was part of the McGouirk family, and the McGouirks, when they came here, there was Seth, David, these were brothers. There was Seth, David, and William and Benjamin. William and Benjamin, I think, moved on westward in later years. David stayed here for a while. And Seth wound up moving on as well, and I think he wound up in the upper part of Georgia. But David settled here along with Seth, and he had a large family. David was he was supposedly the first justice of the peace here in Meriwether, this part of Meriwether County, the first district. David helped organize Macedonia Baptist Church, which still exists. Macedonia Baptist was organized in 1828, and David was one of the first deacons, along with his brother-in-law, Lodwick Rollins. Now, Lodwick had married David's sister, Rachel, so they all came here together. Well, not long after the organization of Macedonia, the church split, and David and some other members came just across the creek. David owned 202.5 acres here. Pigeon Creek ran right through the middle of it. David came over to this side of the creek and donated 4 acres here, which became Ebenezer Primitive Baptist Church. And he and some members that left Macedonia came here and built a church. The church here supposedly was organized in the early 1830s. So David's family was already, his mother, I understand, was buried here, and some other family members that had passed away early on. The McGouirk family cemetery became the church cemetery. After the railroad came through and Manchester was organized, everything moved into town. There was a new cotton mill and businesses and everything. So the church building that was here was actually moved into town, and it still stands on 2nd Street. It's now called Bible Baptist Church, so the building still exists. But Ebenezer Primitive Baptist Church and Ebenezer School were both located here. The discrepancy in the dates, now there's a lot of misunderstanding about that this church was formed in 1844 or 45. That is not so. That is actually the year that David donated the land. He had given the land, but he never had deeded it. And the deed was finally recorded when David moved away from here. David moved along with all of his family. He had a lot of children. And David and all of his children moved to Coosa County in Alabama. And shortly after David arrived over there and got his farm situated, he died. Died, I think, in 1848 or 49. By the time they divided everything that David owned, sold and divided the proceeds among all of his children, there wasn't a lot of money. So what was left of some of his family, they moved on westward, some stayed in Coosa County, but my mother's branch of the family returned here, and that was David's son, Jethro Thomas McGouirk. And he returned here. I've told you about him, fought in the Civil War, and his son died in the Civil War and so forth. But Jethro Thomas's second wife, his first wife is buried out here, but his second wife was a member of the C family from here. And he's buried in the C family cemetery, but everybody else is out here. The ones that didn't stay west or move on further west, they're buried out here in these woods. They're unmarked, of course. We have no idea where they are or which grave's theirs. There's a lot of graves here. And we just found a connection to someone that surprised us a bit about the Wright grave out in Talbot County. One of our good friends is descended from him, so we're going to have to get him to come out here with us. This area here in this fence part is the members of the Brown, the Wrights, and the Roughton family. And there's descendants of these folks that are still living in this area that pay someone to come here and keep this clean. And they clean it off, once every month or so. Most people that pass by think that this is the cemetery, that this is it, and that's all it is to it. But no, there's 3 more acres behind here that's covered. The church, I understand, stood right there. It functioned also as a schoolhouse back in the old days. You can see the sign that was put up here years ago. And they put the date of 1825 on there, which was probably correct. But somebody in later years found the deed at the courthouse that was dated 1845, so they changed the date. But like I said, that's not correct date. That's just the date of the deed, because that was the year that David McGouirk left here. I think it had been his intention to leave the property to the church upon his death, but he went ahead and gave it when he left here.
So the day that Dan and I visited the John Wright Cemetery, the one that had been vandalized and dug into before, that same day after we spent time out there investigating that cemetery, looking at some of the burials out there, we actually came to visit this cemetery. And little did we know that this cemetery was directly connected to the John Wright Cemetery. So I received a comment from a viewer who also has a YouTube channel called Piedmont Trails, and they left me a really detailed comment on John Wright, and also told me where his wife is buried. And this is the grave here of Anna Wright. It says, "Our mother, Anna Wright, born June 2nd, 1811, and died April 10th, 1891. She's gone, she left this world of woe for regions of eternal love. 'Twas God who called her from below to join in praising him above." So we got some detailed information on John Wright, and like I said, his wife Anna, who's buried here. And then that led us to another kind of neat discovery, that John Wright is the 5th great-grandfather of one of our friends.
That's correct.
And he didn't know where he was buried, so we'll be bringing him back out and showing him that grave soon.
Anna Wright, her son is buried right here, and his name was John Tyler Wright. So John Tyler Wright's father is John Wright, who's buried out there in that vandalized grave. And John Tyler Wright, he and his wife are buried here. He was born in 1845 and died in 1917. And you said his father died in
1863, yeah, is when his father died, and is buried out there. And there's also possibly some of their other siblings, because I think, I have to look back at the notes, but I think that John Wright and Anna had 10 children.
But John Tyler Wright had a daughter, and she is buried, well, he had lots of children, but mainly this one, her name was Freddie Wright, and she married Julius Brown. And Miss Freddie Wright Brown died in 1944, and Mr. Brown died in 1944, and he died in 1934. Their great-grandson lives in Waverly Hall. His family's from here in Manchester, but he's going to come with us on the next trip out there to the Wright family cemetery. But he was explaining to me who all these family connections are. This Miss Freddie buried right there. This is her sister, who died in 1891. Is that a 1 or a 4? That's a 1, yeah. Susie.
Born June 16th, 1866, died June 26th, 1891. This would be her brother Joel, son of J.T. and T.A. Wright, born April 9th, 1875, and died February 9th, 1905.
Things were done different long ago. They didn't put Mrs. Wright's name on this. Her name was Teresa.
Yeah.
They just put Mrs. J.T. Wright.
That's right.
I can imagine if I died, them putting someday my wife, if she's buried next to me, putting on her headstone Mrs. Daniel T. Akin instead of her name.
Right.
I know that was set well.
Yeah. All right, so now we're stepping out of the manicured part of the cemetery and into the more forgotten part. There's 2 graves there. There's 2 more there. Go ahead and look at these. In memory of George W. Gresham, is that a C or a G?
Gresham.
Gresham, born July 11th, 1833, and died June 13th, 1890. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection, for upon such the second death hath no part. And over here is in memory of Sarah F., wife of George W. Gresham, born May 15, 1832, and died June 9, 1883. Just as the sun descends at eve, soon with fresher beams to rise, so will our darling mother receive life eternal in the skies. All right, so further back in the woods, this is where you can really see how many graves there are in the cemetery. And again, if you just stopped at the gated in area beside the road, you have no idea how many burials there are back here. Now, I mean, we've just seen a couple dates, but did the cemetery start further back? I mean, where would the older graves be?
I understand that the older ones are back here and it worked its way to the front.
Got Bueller Moody Prophet, who was born May 9th, 1887 and died September 25th, 1925. Also, here's a veteran's grave with this Virginia creeper creeping up it. Charlie Moody, Georgia Private 46th Engineers, November 8th, 1936. This is his death date. Look at that unique engraving. I don't think I've seen one quite like that on a military headstone before for the year. Now these markers look like they were placed here maybe a little bit more recently. Green B. Moody, born February 2nd, 1843, and died June 4th, 1923. Company E, 28th Georgia Infantry, Confederate States Army. Is that a military marker?
No, that is not a military marker, but it is made to simulate one.
Yeah.
But that's not a VA issued marker because
Gotcha.
it's polished.
Yeah, okay.
And it's also slanted. But Green B. Moody, that's an old name. The Moody's certainly are an old family here. But Green B., the McGouirks, one of the McGouirks' name was Greenberry McGouirk. Middle name was Berry. Let's see, Rachel McGouirk Rollins had a son named Greenberry Rollins. And Greenberry Rollins, I think, had a son named Henry Green Rollins, but I'm not real sure about that. But anyway, the name Greenberry was a very popular name back in the early 1800s and mid 1800s.
It's interesting.
I don't know the connection. I don't know the story about that. I'd be interested to know where Greenberry came
Right.
from. It was popular. There's a lot of people in the South named that. But more so here in Meriwether County than anywhere that I've ever found.
This is Catherine Moody, born July 14th, 1865, and died February 15th, 1945. And Henry Lawson Moody, born 1899 and died 1968. It says, "Suffer little children to come unto me." Catherine Newman, "Suffer little children to come unto me." So did this one just not have a name?
Probably not. Never named the child.
This is a variation of the whole box tomb that we usually see. Wade Hampton, son of R.A. and M something Cheney, born May 25th, 1875, and died September 15th, 1877, I think. Will you double check me on those dates, Dan?
1875 and 1877, so that's quite a substantial grave for a 2-year-old.
Yeah, it is.
Wade Hampton, that was a famous, one of the Confederate, I can't remember, Confederate colonels or generals.
Yeah.
I can't remember what brigade that he led, but he was one of the leaders of Confederate Army from Georgia. So these are all members of the Cheney family, is that right?
Kitty Hill, infant of R.A. and M.F. Cheney, born February 9th and died December 7th, 1891. The bottom it simply says rest. Kitty Hill. Kitty Hill.
The Cheneys were owners of Cleveland Springs, back when Cleveland Springs was a resort. I don't know if it's the same set wouldn't be hard to find out. But Isaac Cheney, I don't think had any children, and he owned Cleveland Springs, and it seems like he had a nephew or something, that some family member that ran that for him. Isaac Cheney owned the house that later the Vic Cooper family lived in. It became the McCoy home, then the Cooper home, out on Highway 36.
So here's another one that's been damaged. And then there's this grave, which is also another kind of box tomb, as you can see, that's had some patchwork with stones done to it before. This is Alice M. Cheney, wife of F.A. O'Neill, born January 20th, 1865, and died July 17th, 1902. Then behind these graves are these absolutely amazing old false crypts, I guess is what you'd call them. But they are some of the largest that I've ever seen, at this style at least, with the marble top.
They are huge.
This is Rufus M. Cheney Sr., born July 12th, 1821, and died August 11th, 1895, and that is just amazing.
That's about 10 feet long.
Yeah. You can see too where the stone is kind of divoted in the center. This marble will do that with nothing under it to support it. It'll actually flex and kind of bend, which is not what you would think stone would do. Is there anything on there?
Yeah. It's just worn.
Oh, there it is.
It's Rufus Cheney Jr.
Born June 10th, 1869, and died January 13th, 1894.
I know that Isaac Cheney is buried in Linwood Cemetery in Columbus. He was so wealthy that he could afford that. Being carried to Columbus and be interred back in those days was top notch.
This is another false crypt that's just made out of huge quarried stone. Then here we have another one. I forgot my brush today. People for a long time have said that I need to make a bag with all my cemetery tools in it and leave it in my car. And I did that. We just drove the wrong car today.
You need one for each car.
Apparently I need one for each car. That's right.
And a lot of these trips are impromptu also.
Yeah, it's true.
People don't realize that we don't always plan these trips. Sometimes we're just, we come up here to eat lunch and we say, hey, let's run out and see about such and such cemetery.
M.F. Glove, born June 20th, 1840 something.
Looks like maybe 48.
The engraving is so light on it.
It really is.
And died May 13th, 1881 maybe?
It almost looks like they weren't sure of either. They just kind of said, maybe. I have never seen an engraving of a 4 that light.
Right?
Huh. Slab comes, it's not as long as the others.
Yeah.
It stops off right there.
That's about typical size, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that one really gotten in bad condition. This one has held water. And I think that freezing temperatures combined, with water in the marble.
I don't think I'll be able to read that one.
I see 1894 up there.
Maybe it's going up.
Well,
Oh, there's a name.
1830.
That's probably a name there. I wonder if this is a piece of it then.
Possibly.
It is a piece of something.
Yeah.
Probably
Cheney.
says Cheney, yeah.
It says Cheney.
Yep.
That goes back on there. Headstone over there with nothing on it. Is that right?
Oh, the little footstone looking one. Looks like a footstone, but it's being used as a headstone.
Yeah.
Nothing on it.
There's the foot.
Nothing on it. But there are a lot more out through the cemetery. You don't see them until you're right up on them, like with these out here. And there's probably some that are so covered up we just wouldn't see them. But if you look out through there, you can see all manner of indentions going throughout there. It says infant babe of J. and E. Smith, born and died October 25th, 1888. Unnamed on earth, but angel in heaven. This is in memory of Warren Smith, born and died January 4th, 1882. Rest to thy gentle spirit. Oh, there's another one right there. It's in memory of A.L. Smith, born February 22nd, 1883, and died November 16th, 1884. Look at the little star or something right there. It says, "Little angel is at rest among the blessed."
That reminds me of those old Crawford graves up in Roughhead. Footstone or headstone one.
Right there?
There.
Fieldstone. There's one right there. Unmarked grave.
There seems to be indentions in this area.
Yeah. If you look, and you have to look close, and it's hard to see on camera, but there's a row right here. You can see indention. I think there's one there, and it keeps on going behind. There's another one there, and there. They're all over the place out here.
There's one there.
So these are the footstones. I guess these headstones face backwards from what we would consider. Little footstone there. Riley Moody, who was born January the 6th, 1777, and died August the 14th, 1857. So we've definitely gotten older back here. Over here is Mary Moody, the wife of Riley Moody, who was born May the 7th, 1782, and died November the 22nd, 1856.
There's evidently a grave right there, that sunk spot.
Yeah, right here.
Right here we have another grave.
Yeah, this is another one that's kind of like those Crawford graves. Infant babe of R&E Thompson, born August 31st, 1879, died September 19th, 1879. Not named on earth, but angel in heaven. It's interesting that the child lived that long and wasn't named, because, a lot of times we'll see, infant that was born and died on the same day that wasn't named, but this child lived for a little bit at least.
And then back here is the railroad track. And that railroad came through here in, I believe, 1907, 1908. I believe the first train passed over it in 1908, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, when that railroad track came through, it actually divided a part of the land that was part of the cemetery. Now, they say that the railroad did not go through any graves. So this would have been the back side of the cemetery. However, some of the property that went with this cemetery was over there on the other side of that track. And I even heard once that some of the McGouirks may have been buried over there.
Interesting.
But I have walked that entire place. There's no rocks, there's no indentions in the ground, no sunken spots that I could see. I would think that if there were graves over there, there'd be evidence of it. There would be other graves around them like this. When it was clear cut, it doesn't seem like it goes uphill. It just kind of, there's a high spot right there, but it all goes down all the way to the creek back there. Pigeon Creek is about 300 yards the other side of there.
And the graves wouldn't have been that old when the railroad came through, so.
Well, if they were put there in 1825, but when the railroad came through here, there were descendants still living. I mean, there were children and grandchildren of those people and these people still living right here in this area.
Yeah.
This was farmland when the railroad came through. And if there was any concern about them going through anybody's grave, they would have said something.
Right.
There's plenty of people that would have stood up for it. Manchester was organized and became a city, and there were other churches that were organized that took members away from this one. You had First Baptists, and then you had Presbyterians and all that came in and built churches, and First Methodists, and a lot of people went into town and got a job. The mill came here, there was other jobs available, and they all joined other churches, and this little church, I don't think survived too long. I don't really know what year that it ceased to exist. It moved into town, but it did not survive long after it moved there. And no one knows what became of the records. The church building still survives, but the records, no one knows. They were privately kept. And, you know, people who privately kept record, you know, houses burned, things were thrown away and so forth over the years, so no one knows where they are. But it's a big cemetery.
Yes, it
I
is.
think there's another grave right over there that's
Yeah.
marked.
There's a grave right there.
Yeah.
I mean, we know they're all through here.
Yeah,
but
there's
this one's
the
marked.
footstone of it down there.
And there's one right there in front of your foot. You just
Yeah.
kicked it right there. Yeah, this is a Confederate veteran here. W.T. Pike, Company I, 46th Georgia Volunteers, CSA.
Now, I will say this about that. I don't know much about the Pike family, but my great-great-grandfather, John Walker McGouirk only had one sister, and she married a Pike.
Gotcha.
I don't know if that's who she married or not. I don't even know what his name was.
All right, so we are at the front of the cemetery now, or back towards the front. There's a couple graves I showed you in the beginning. We have looked at all of the marked graves that we could see out there, and Dan was just commenting on the fact that this little plot here has a wall in it, but apparently no graves, no marked graves, until, yep, right there,
There's something down there.
just completely covered up.
I don't know if it has a name on it or not.
We will find out. I don't even think a brush would do any good here.
No.
Yep, it's marked. Is that a half inch of dirt?
It's been a long time since that's been uncovered.
It's got quite a bit of writing on it.
Martha Ann Melviny?
Melviny McGraw. Born in Meriwether County, Georgia, October 27th, 1860. Married to A.H. McRae, December 24th, 1889. And died July 22nd, 1904.
So she's a Mrs. McRae then. Well, I wonder if Mr. McRae's grave is marked.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. There it is. We'll do it again.
Oh, get ready for the comments. Where are your tools?
Yeah.
Where are your gloves?
I don't mind getting my hands dirty, and gloves won't protect me from a copperhead
That's right.
that's hiding in these leaves. I don't think that this one, it might
But honestly, as long as I've known you, you love doing that more than anything in the world. Peeling back that mossy
be. That's right.
cluster of roots that covers a grave. Yeah, I'm afraid that's a
It's a concrete.
concrete slab with no name.
Yeah. No name on this one.
But most likely that is Mrs. McRae's husband.
I think it's so cool the way the mat of everything just kind of peels off of the grave.
Yeah.
There's nothing on this one though. That's too bad. There's two more we haven't looked at over here too.
Okay.
Frederick J.
Hinchcliffe? Well, I guess it's Hinchcliffe.
Hinchcliffe. Frederick J. Hinchcliffe. Born February 25th, 1820. Died June 29th, 1874. And wife, Mary Finley Hinchcliffe. Born May 13th, 1837. She died March 24th, 1897. So, it's a marker for two graves. J. Robert Betts, born February 19th, 1826, died September 8th, 1892. How desolate our home, bereft of thee. Well, I think that is all of the marked graves, all that there is for us to look at out here in this cemetery, but super cool, historic place, oldest cemetery in the county, and your family's out here, so in unmarked graves, but super neat place to visit. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, but make sure you stay tuned because we will be taking our friend Cal out to visit his fifth great-grandfather soon. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.